Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the AI for Good Global Summit, all year, always online. I hope you, your families, friends, and colleagues are staying healthy and safe. My name is Ahmed Jihad from the ITU, the International Telecommunications Union, and I have the privilege of facilitating today's session. The ITU is the United Nations Specialized Agency for ICTs, and we are also the organizers of the AI for Good Global Summit, alongside with XPRIZE Foundation, 37 United Nations organizations, ACM, and co-convened by Switzerland. The goal of the summit is to identify practical application of artificial intelligence and to scale those solutions to a global impact. As most of the world now has gone digital, we are also going digital with a weekly programming and online programs and elements that are actually helping us to reach even much more people throughout the year. Today is an AI for Good Innovation Factory Startups pitching session. The AI for Good Innovation Factory aims to build a diverse and inclusive community of entrepreneurs, startups, scale-ups, idea innovators that have an AI solution that can advance the sustainable development goals. And this session is actually very special because this session is co-organized with the Government of Estonia to experience the Estonian thriving AI startup ecosystem. And it's going to also have 5 Estonian startups who will be pitching as well. These startups, among all the other startups that we have in the AI for Good Innovation Factory throughout the year, would be evaluated by a jury of experts based on their AI solution, sustainable development, sustainability, and business model. And the top select startup would be presented as outcomes of the AI for Good Innovation Factory at the grand finale of the Innovation Factory on the 19th of November this year. So we really hope for a very interactive and very exciting session today. And before I start with the opening remarks and the guests we're going to have, we have a very interesting guest judge and the other judges, and introducing them and start go with pitching. I would like to start with some housekeeping rules. Your microphone has been disabled, so please use the chat and the Q&A functionality to communicate. And I would be happy to read some of these questions and some of the comments in the chat to our speakers and startups today. So we're counting on your very active participation for a very interactive session. And speaking of being interactive, we have the first challenge for you. I would like to ask all of you right now to type in the chat where they are connected from, which city, which country. And I'll start with myself. So today I'm connected from Geneva. I can see Geneva, Vancouver, Malaysia, Myanmar, Dallas, wow, Estonia, Denver, Colorado, Germany. Okay, that's everywhere. So that's a global audience that fits a global summit. Well, that's awesome. So I think without further ado, it's time now for our opening remarks. And we're going to have our opening remarks from Sten Tamkivi, the renowned Estonian entrepreneur, investor, and former CEO of Skype Estonia and co-founder of Teleport, that was acquired by Topia in 2017. I'm not sure if Sten is here, but we can wait and see if he's already has joined the session today or not yet. I think Sten is actually reconnected. So maybe it's time now to give some time for Sten to reconnect and have his mic and audio and all the AV kind of fixed and all the technical issues solved. We always joke that AI is easy and AV is hard. So maybe we're going to go a step further right now and ask for our guest judge of today, Jaan Tallinn. So Jaan is the founding engineer of Skype and a former investor and director of AI company DeepMind. So Jaan, please enable your video and audio. And thank you very much for being with us today and welcome on our virtual AI for Good Summit.
Thanks for having me. But I also see that Sten is now connected. So like, do you want?
Yeah, I was kindly granted rights to speak now as well. Thank you.
Okay, so now we fixed the solution. It's great to have 2 Estonian renowned entrepreneurs and investors with us right now, kicking start this Estonian startups pitching session. So Jaan, we would start with Stan, if you don't mind, and then we're going to go for a very interesting fireside chat with you. So Stan, thank you for being with us today.
Thanks, Ahmed. Thanks, Jaan. I just wanted to welcome you all to this call about the Estonian AI startup scene and give you a little bit of context of what do we what do we talk about when we talk about Estonian entrepreneurship, and why I think Estonia is a special breeding ground for all kinds of digital innovation. So as you might know, the country became re-independent merely 30 years ago, and sort of stories of countries being occupied and sort of having hardship are not that uncommon in the world. But I think what is special about Estonia is how we've dealt with sort of re-entry into free markets and recovery since early 90s. And what we today call the Estonian startup scene basically got really a boost in early 2000s when companies like Skype and Playtech came about, and Skype to date is the first sort of Estonian unicorn and probably the most well-known in this group as well. Were a company built by Jaan and a few other Estonian engineers, started in 2003. In 2005, it was acquired for multiple $1 billion and eventually got acquired by Microsoft for 8.5 billion. And now we've already had 4 of those stories, which results in Estonia being probably in the world top 2 or top 3 as far as number of tech startups per capita go. I would argue it's Silicon Valley, Israel, and Estonia are the highest density per capita. And while in 2006, for example, we counted that the early stage investment in tech was maybe a few $1 million per year in the country. For the last few years, we're seeing $300 or euros a year going consistently into new innovative tech companies. We see 20% year-on-year growth in the number of staff. So there are 6,000 young people building startups. There are 1,000 new companies in the country. And all these numbers are going up at the rate where I personally predict that in the small economy, we will have about a third of the entire GDP of the country coming from innovative tech solutions in the next few years. And specifically AI, there's this old joke about AI, which is that if it's written in PowerPoint, it's AI. And if it's written in Python, it's machine learning. I would say the Estonian startups have been writing a lot of Python. So there are these 5 fantastic teams that you're going to see pitching today, but also, again, going back to early mid-2000s, when the teams at Skype were fighting fraud, there was a lot of machine learning applied already then. When one of the Skype co-founders, Ahti Heinla, started a company called Starship and building self-driving robots. Obviously, that's a big machine learning problem to solve. And so you can continue counting those examples. And I think right now we're seeing a wave of companies, including those pitching today, where machine learning and related advanced statistical methods and sort of AI-ish methods have become the core of the value that these small teams provide. And that eventually builds to what I believe is the biggest strength of a tiny ecosystem like Estonia, is that the solutions that work and make Estonia special and make startups very influential in the world, I believe are the ones where you can put a small number of human hours or man hours or woman hours in and get the massive value out for the world. And I think AI is one of those themes which is sort of like one of the highest ratios of human work versus value generation for the world that you can go for. And because of that, it fits very well into Estonia, which is basically a place where small teams of people come together increasingly from all over the world to build solutions that really change the global world for the better. So I hope you enjoy this session today, and I hope you keep in touch with the Estonian startup scene and track the companies that are coming out of here for longer term. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Stan. Amazing opening remarks and a very good kind of setting the scene for the whole session, and also talking about, very kind of limited man hours that results a great amount of results is great. I mean, you came last minute and gave this great key words and I think key concepts, and very interesting part when you said that, well, AI in the presentation and machine learning and the Python. So yeah, people putting the work. So thanks again, Stan. And I think we're moving forward with introducing our guest judge, who actually introduced before again, but I'd love to introduce again, Jaan Tallinn, the actually founding engineer of Skype and the early investor, former investor, director of AI company DeepMind. Jaan, thank you very much for being with us today, and welcome.
Thank you very much.
So Jaan, you were the founding engineer of Skype in 2002. And I just have a very basic question. Have you ever imagined back then that in 20 years' time, in 2020, the whole world would be running over video calls?
No, not really. I think people have been kind of trying to do video calls, or had been trying to do video calls for decades before Skype, and finally kind of did it. So like so while we were doing Skype, while we were adding video calls to Skype, there was kind of quite a lot of like skepticism, especially from me, that people kind of they like to see other people, but I wasn't being like a nerd. I wasn't sure that people kind of actually like to show themselves on video. Therefore, it wasn't clear to me at all that Skype video is going to be successful. So yeah, I was definitely surprised.
Oh, wow. Okay, so maybe this leads me to another question. What did you have in terms of like, how did you envision this piece of software back then? Is it something that you thought would be a great company, something that, I mean, now it's one of the top communication services application worldwide. I mean, back then, have you envisioned it as such a success, or just a trial of something that can kind of raise awareness to consumers or users to do something different, or how did you see it?
No, so we were kind of a group of people who had been doing like several projects. Skype wasn't our first project. Skype wasn't even our first successful project. That was Gaza file sharing. So we had just, and we had like many failed projects as well. So it was just like kind of trying again, and kind of learning meanwhile, and then applying our skills like in peer-to-peer networking to new products. Yeah, some of those worked, some of those didn't.
Yeah, so as Stan said, like just putting, I mean, have your hands on things and try and error more than just the strategy or the vision before. So maybe I'll go a few years after this and ask you, I mean, you were a former investor and director of AI, the well-known now AI company DeepMind. And so was this in the beginning in 2010 when it was established, or a bit after that?
I joined in 2011 as an investor, and later that year also there as a director, yes. And
maybe I have to ask you this: what did you see in it? Like, why did you join? I mean, it was in 2011 wasn't that much of a hype for AI back then.
Yeah.
And,
so that's kind of like a longer story. I'm not sure how much I can compress it, but I didn't join it because of kind of my entrepreneurial and programming interest, which also was there, but mostly for my kind of concern for the future and risks from increasing the powerful technologies that I kind of got interested in 2008, I think. So I had been kind of networking within like back then was a small community of various academicians and kind of thought, I don't know, people who had been thinking about these issues. And then I thought that, okay, one thing that I could be doing, because like I did have some kind of street cred, and also was like already like a starting investor. I thought that what I could do is basically, from one hand, listen to the concerns that people have about future technologies, and then go to the technologists and ask them to kind of connect, and perhaps I could invest in them, perhaps I could become friends, etc. So that's exactly what happened. There was a conference in Oxford where I just walked up to Demis after his speech and said that who I am, and do you want to talk? And we ended up, yeah, that's how we basically got started.
So it was Demis. You just walked on Demis and said, okay, well, let's talk about it. I want to be part of it.
Exactly. Okay. A friend of mine in this AI risk community, or say sort of extension risk community, has said that, Jaan, like the biggest contribution for Skype, the biggest contribution that Skype has made to the world might have, in the end, be that it gave me a reason to be in the room. So kind of ruthless exploiting the Skype brand in order to get audiences with people that I should talk to.
Yeah, good way of looking at it. So maybe just one last question about DeepMind. So if so is the case, and they're doing a great job, why did you leave them? And I mean, why did you jump out? I mean, and when was that? What, this after the Google acquisition? Or?
Yeah, it was exactly because like my role was there. My sort of official role was that I'm an investor director. Therefore, like if I sold my shares, I basically no longer had official reason to be there. But that said, like now I haven't traveled because of COVID. But whenever I used to go to London before this crisis, I always drop by DeepMind and have a lunch with our safety team at least, if not with them, etc.
Okay. And one thing also about your work and your background is that you are actually the co-founder of the Cambridge Center of Study of Existential Risk, and you support a lot of existential risk research organizations. So what do you see as the most existential risk that the world is facing right now and actually we should be mitigating?
So my top three are sort of advanced AI is the biggest one. Then sort of synthetic biology is my second one. And the third one is basically unknown unknowns because like all the risks, not just in top two, but like top five or so, including nuclear, etc. They're kind of less than 100 years old. So like when we're talking about risks that might manifest later this century, it's possible that we're going to learn things that we didn't know before.
So your number one existential risk is advanced AI.
Yes.
Okay. And if I may ask the second question that actually is related to this, how do you envision the role of technology and particularly advanced AI now in the future of life? And
yeah, so like the AI is interesting in a sense that it is sort of double sword. If we screw up the AI, and specifically, I'm not talking about the AI that we have today. I'm talking about the AI that we're going to have in 5 years or perhaps 50 years. I don't know like what the timelines are going to be. Like it's likely that we're going to lose control of this planet, and because we are very finely tuned for this particular environment, like if you like change the temperature even slightly, or the content of the atmosphere, etc., we're going to die in a matter of minutes. So it's really crucial that we do not lose control the way that other species have lost control to humans. So so that's the kind of the downside. However, the upside is that if we get things right, we're going to address like all the problems, including other existential risks. So like if we're going to get AI right, we are going to be able to fix also things like biorisk, which are also very high on my list of risk. Whereas if we only figure out how to make sure that biology is not going to kill us, even synthetic biology, then we still have AI risk to contend with. So I think AI is in that sense like very high leverage technology when it comes to long-term risks.
So you think that the role of advanced AI can be actually a way of mitigating the risk of advanced AI?
Yeah. So that's another thing. So one is like you can use AI to mitigate other risks like biorisk. On the other hand, there's also a lot of thinking that goes into how to actually use AI that is getting more powerful in order to use the kind of mitigate AI risk itself. So like it seems to me that, or it seems to people who have been thought about it, that there are like a bunch of homework that kind of we humans have to do. And then there's a bunch of things that we could potentially delegate to AI itself in order to sort of align it with humanity.
Great. Okay, that's very interesting. I'm reminding everyone from the attendees that you can still post questions to Jaan or to anyone who's speaking today using the Q&A and the chat if you want. And if we have time, we would read them out loud to them and for them to answer. So because of the time, Jaan, I think I'm just going to have 4 very quick questions to you right now, just a quick 5 questions. So what's your favorite AI book?
My favorite AI book? There are a few that I have kind of reviewed recently. I think like it kind of depends on like what one's level is, but I think sort of like a good popular book is Life 3.0 by my friend Max Tegmark. And also I would suggest Stuart Russell's Human Compatible book.
And a very promising AI startup to watch out for?
Yeah, like I'm kind of recused from voting for a few startups that are going to pitch here because I'm already an investor there. So like, yeah, I do like some of the startups in that mix. I think some of them are going to do really well.
Okay, just for the record, so that everyone knows that the startups that Jaan is involved in, he will not going to be scoring them, and we're not going to take his score for these startups. So just to keep it fair for everyone, only the other judges will be sending us the scores for these startups. So maybe the last quick question for you, Jaan, today is, looking back in the last 2 decades with all your experience and all the investments that you did in the AI domain and Skype and Kaz and all these kind of companies that you were part of the founding team of, which technological development surprised you like the most? Like which is the technology you said, okay, this is wow, this is amazing. I would never thought that this would be possible.
Yeah, I think that the biggest surprise really isn't the surprise to people. It's kind of like a boring surprise if you have like the benefit of hindsight. I mean, these things, like I really wouldn't have expected that people have supercomputers that are touchscreen in their pockets that have replaced their phones. So that was a surprise. I did own the first iPhone as it came out, and I was like just really blown away with its capability. So I started hacking it right away, etc. But like from kind of less obvious things, I think the fact that you can like do like small and so powerful electrical motors and the way how they kind of play into various systems that are kind of available or about to change like a lot of things. I think this is also another like really big surprise to me.
Great, thanks very much, Jaan. And I'm sure we're going to have some more questions in the chat and the Q&A. We're going to ask you these questions along the way in the session. Thanks again. And I think we'll move for our next judge, and we're very happy to have Dr. Mike Short, who is the Chief Scientific Advisor to the Department of International Trade in the UK and a former Vice President of Telefonica with a very career in telecommunication technology of more than 30 years. So Dr. Mike is enabling video and audio, and we're very happy to have you today with us.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm pleased you've got such a great ITU backing today. 80+ participants. Well done.
Thank you very much. It's only in the Zoom. We're having it live on other social media as well, so there are more people watching. But Dr. Mike, I think we cannot see you. Can you just enable your video, please?
The video is on, but I can see you.
Okay. Maybe my colleagues will check if there's something technical, but I cannot see your video, but we can hear you clearly.
I'll switch on again. There we go.
No, I think
happy to answer the questions without video if need be.
No, it would work, of course, but I think there's maybe a screen cover or something on the camera. Yes, now we can see you. So I think it was something covering the camera. So now we can see you clearly. Happy to see you again, Dr. Mike. And maybe as a very quick introductory question with your experience in telecommunication and technology as an executive for like 30 years, and now as a chief scientific advisor in the International Department of Trade, of National Trade Department in the UK, what are the verticals or sectors that can be completely transformed by technology in the coming 5 years?
Well, I think the top 5 for AI, if I can put it that way, will be those with big data sets where there is plenty of room for innovation. The data sets are key to actually be looked at from an AI point of view. So financial services, I think there's a lot more room to do work in that area. Areas like health and digital health in particular. Clearly, if we can do more prevention of disease, prevention of long-term conditions, big data and AI could work well together in that area. I certainly see energy and climate change being worth strong technology being applied to those areas. We need to prevent the worst of climate and also the worst of pollution. And then the other 2 areas, clearly telecoms, I think has got a lot more room to go to take a much bigger digital dividend in terms of services and the more personalized services that will come with AI. And lastly, transport. Clearly transport, I think we know transport is moving towards automation and cleaner fuels, but we need to also address smart cities so they become cleaner cities. We need to make sure we use transport more effectively so it's consuming less energy.
Oh, wow. Okay, so basically you're saying that it's areas where there's a lot of data sets available, as things like financial sector, healthcare, kind of these kind of things. So maybe good thing you mentioned it, that an area that has a lot of innovation. And if we're thinking about, okay, how can we make sure that this technology or AI innovation is being used for good? I mean, or at least going in the right direction. How can we ensure that? How can we make sure that this is where we go, not the other direction?
Well, I think linking to good case studies helps to share the experience more internationally. And I think I'm always a big fan of case studies. But I think a lot of the access to data issues need to be addressed. In other words, AI may be held back unless data is shared better. So I'm a big fan of city data stores. So in London, we've got a great data store that brings together transport data, city, borough by borough data, even health and social care and police data. And that's been a great basis for innovation, not just with AI, but also with apps, also with information services, and has helped to create many companies. The UK probably is the leader in Europe for the number of unicorns that have started up, because we have strong access to talent from all over the world, and we have very strong access to mentors and financial services, people who will invest in these startups. But a data store is a key enabler because it's sharing data with people who wouldn't otherwise have access to it. So therefore, I think it's a key enabler for AI and innovation itself.
Yeah, okay. And maybe, because you mentioned the UK, I know you're already a visiting professor in many of the UK universities, and you're also on the board of examiners at University College London. So a question that I'm sure a lot of the high school students or even university students right now would be asking, which field or fields of study would you recommend to high school graduates to go to university right now with your experience?
Well, I think there's a lot more to do in computer science, whether it's for AI, Internet of Things, the digital economy. There's a lot of scope in that area. My father, who worked for IBM for over 30 years, always said to me, never join a sunset industry, always look at the sunrise industries. And I would suggest to you that there is a lot to do in the digital economy, so look for where the most opportunities are. I feel really sad for children and young people today because of COVID. Some of their opportunities, whether at school or at university or first job on the job ladder, they've been held back by the current COVID crisis. So they need to come out fighting, but fighting with enthusiasm. So it's not just the subject they study, it's their passion, their energy, their intellect, their knowledge, their networks. They need to build on all those skills, not just the academic discipline itself.
On such a high note, I think I would leave it here, and I'm really looking forward to the pitching and see all this startups looking at the sunrise, as you mentioned. And thanks very much to Mike. And we're going to move forward with our next judge for now, and then we're going to have you again for the Q&A part and the pitching part with the 5 startups. Thanks very much for being with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Our next judge is Sasha Kyle, and Sasha have been also with us as a judge in, I think, on the first or the second AI for Good Innovation Factory pitching session. So thanks very much for being with us again today. She's a digital health entrepreneur, speaker, startup expert, and mentor. And well, talking about COVID and digital health entrepreneur, I think a very obvious question, Sasha, for me would be, the healthcare is highly regulated sector, and usually topics like around trusting AI or explainability or things like this, or the AI models. Yet we see a lot of people, a lot of startups actually, are working in this sector, although it's a very high regulated, although there's a lot of issues, and it's also work with human lives, right? So why is that the case? Why, first of all, a lot of startups specifically head to this sector? And second, how can they overcome these mentioned challenges from your perspective?
Hi everyone, thank you. Last time I joined, I was actually joining from US. Now I'm in Lausanne, Switzerland. Really excited to be here. And you asked some really valid questions. The first question I would say is pretty easy to answer. You know, as an entrepreneur and investor, I would say that although impact of AI across all industries is truly transformative, in the healthcare, it is truly life-changing. And what's so interesting about it, we can apply AI across healthcare industry. So we can look at hospital care, clinical research, drug development. We can look to reduce the cost of care overall, especially relevant in countries like the United States and Switzerland. And of course, we can improve patient outcomes. So why entrepreneurs join? So I was curious and pulled up some data, and here are two juicy numbers for you. By 2021, AI investment is expected to reach 6.6 billion. And then Accenture also predicts that the top AI applications may result in annual savings of 150 billion by 2026. So there is a lot of work to be done for us entrepreneurs, and it's, you know, plenty of business and use cases, a great investment opportunity, which is why, you know, investors and entrepreneurs are pursuing the industry. Now, second question is probably, it's a loaded question, I would say. So I'm just gonna share my personal experience. So I absolutely, you know, personally love deep learning and neural networks. And of course, we can measure the right decisions, right? So, but in the healthcare space, what I would say is healthcare providers look to trust algorithms, and they want to use algorithms that have been clinically validated. Well, now that presents a challenge often because healthcare is one of the most regulated industries in the world. And so as what does the entrepreneur and investor, what should we do, right? So, well, my 2 cents is, of course, as an entrepreneur, there are a number of markets, and regulation, of course, is not the same. So if you have a truly revolutionizing technology, you can pursue markets where regulation allows for you to create to clinically validate your technology. And then once you have that clinical validation, you can enter other markets. Now, of course, you know, as far as regulation, I'm also not just an entrepreneur, I'm a patient advocate. So I advocate for giving patients more rights and opportunities. So as a patient, let's say, that just find out that they have cancer. So you basically, I think it's fair to present patient with 2 questions. First question is, you can use this technology that involves using AI methods. And maybe it's unexplainable AI, right? So the technology has been clinically validated. Now we can see that success rate, perhaps it's, it could be 40, 60, so the odds are not, on your side. And maybe there are some side effects that are associated, so on and so forth. Or you have a second choice, you can trust this new method, and we have validated the outcomes. We may not explain, where, why decisions were made a certain way, but we have measured some successes. And so I think then it's fair to leave this question for patients to obviously think for themselves, to consult, care providers and so on and so forth. And then, of course, there is another, again, from the patient perspective, there is such a thing as medical tourism, just entrepreneurial perspective. A lot of the times you test your models in the markets that have, that are more open to innovation. And then, of course, you can offer that innovation to patients and then encourage them to travel to those markets. And then finally, if we just look through history, AI once upon a time was this new crazy thing that people thought would never take off, and people still talk about taking over the world, and there are all of these things, right, and precautions. But yet it is something that the benefits of AI is something that we experience every day, no matter what sector we're working or just in our daily lives. And so I believe that science eventually wins over the human desire to be stuck in the past and human fear. So I am positive overall that, it's just, if entrepreneurs are persistent, if VCs continue to fund good innovation, eventually science will show a way, even if it is a highly regulated, resistant change industry like healthcare space.
Thank you very much, Sasha. That was a very comprehensive and great explanation for the question. Thank you very much. And we're looking forward to have your questions with the start of switching. And we're moving now for our last and definite judge today, Stephanie Baraki, ACM board member, past chair, teacher, industry analyst, writer, consultant in the IT industry, investor at Risk Capital, and he's been great support and give us a lot of advice since the start of this innovation factory. Thank you very much for being with us today.
So I didn't quite get your question. You're coming in and out, at least from my end anyways, but it's such a pleasure to be here, Ahmed. I think the innovation factory is just marvelous. And of course, AI for Good has made history with your billion plus audience. And congratulations, by the way, to ITU to host it and create this wonderful platform.
Thank you very much. That was a great response if you didn't hear me. So now I'll try to speak a little bit louder and slower. So I hope you can hear me better. So Stephen, a quick question about Reed's Capital. I mean, I know it's a venture capital, but they always mention that they have this open innovation venture approach. Can you explain to us a little bit what does open innovation venture approach means at Reed's Capital?
Yeah, so the whole concept of open innovation is the fact that corporates, for example, don't have the ability now to keep up with innovation. So what they have to do is they have to seek it through startups, investing in startups and bringing them into the corporates. So that's open innovation corporate venture capital. So how about open innovation venture capital? What does that look like? Well, I'm a venture capitalist. That's where we look at really interesting startups, and we already have corporates in mind who we can marry them with. And when we know that there's this good relationship potentially between the startup and a corporate, then we'll do the investment. And because when we do the investment and help them grow, we've got an exit, a good exit candidate, or a good ways of scaling that startup technology or solution worldwide, because we have corporates in mind that we believe are a good fit. So we call that open innovation venture capital.
Yeah, got it. Okay. And is there a specific type of startups that you invest in, or it's startups at large? Any innovative startup that is scalable, you are interested in that?
Yeah, it's a very good question. So the question is, what kind of startups do we invest in? What's our investment theme or thesis?
Yeah.
We go very early. We do seed rounds, and we look for transformational startups. In other words, ones where we believe the underlying technology and solution will solve global problems and can be used in every country, whether it's both developed or developing countries. So, and hopefully has some kind of societal impact because of the way it scales globally. So those are the kinds of technologies we look for. And it could be chip technologies, could be biomedical, it could be in agriculture, it could be in land use, it could fit any variety of different kinds of technologies that are solutions to real problems. And of course, we have a sweet spot for artificial intelligence, machine learning.
Great. So last question before we jump into pitching. How do you see the technology, AI, innovation, and impact investment domain right now? I mean, and right now, I mean, through COVID and after COVID. Would there be a new normal in the investment domain as well, or it's going to be what do you think?
You know, that's a very good question. Again, you know, what the world is going to look like in the world beyond COVID. And in fact, I've been working with a CEO group of almost 30,000 of them, representing about 9 trillion in annual revenue, helping them to produce a series on that particular topic area. And I've been keynoting quite a bit to CEOs on that topic area as well. What the world is, what is it going to be after COVID? Well, what we're seeing is that there's going to be an acceleration of digital transformation. So let me step back. You know, in 2016, Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum came out with the fourth industrial revolution. And you had all of these sort of massive kind of changes that were going to occur, you know, probably by 2030. And then you had that updated when Japan came out about 2 years later with something called Society 5.0. And then KVNI out of the Netherlands came out with something called Smart Humanity. The ideas behind Society 5.0 and Smart Humanity, that it really was going to invade everywhere, even perhaps affect our culture and you know, just who we are as people in humanity. Well, what's happened is all of that's going to occur, but what COVID has done is compressed it. So for example, you have massive movement of people online, working together. Companies have been changing their business models if they're not already there to be more digitally inclined. So that digital transformation compression has accelerated from rather than 10 years than to 1 to 2 years. And I'll just give you a really good example. This medicine, patient care now, you can do it through telemedicine, 5G, AI assistance, and it's been accelerated. And the regulatory frameworks have been accelerated to allow this. How about material handling, vaccine development, contact tracing, again, using big data, AI, supercomputers, or capabilities on mobile technology, all of that, again, a compression. Managing risk in the aspect of patient care, or not having to always go to a center, but you can, doing diagnostics remotely or in the home. All of that is being compressed because of what's happening in this acceleration. So the new normal will really be a much more digitally engaged world today. And hopefully then an ability to bring in the over 2 billion that don't have healthcare inclusion, the over 2 billion that don't have financial inclusion, and to have that distributed worldwide, because what's happening is that machine learning AI routines can now be embedded into on the edge or into the Internet of Things. And there's a lot of developments being moved in that area. And in fact, we've been investing in that area.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Great answer as well, and a great overview as usual. So I think now it's time to go ahead with the pitching. So thanks very much for all our mentors and judges of today. And we're going to go straight right now to the pitching. As we mentioned, it's 4 minutes pitch followed by Q&A. We have 5 startups today: Sentinel, Advisory AI, Pactum, Linguist, and eAgronom. So I think we're just going to start with Sentinel. So please, can you just enable your mic and video? I can see Jonas is here. How are you? All's good?
Wonderful. Hi.
And you're connected from where today? Which city?
Tallinn, Estonia.
Great. So this is the right city to be for this session. So Jonas, please share your screen, your slides, and you can start speaking. The virtual floor is all yours, and the timer is going to start when you start speaking.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Johannes Tammegend, and I'm the CEO of Sentinel. Our mission is to protect democracies against the threats of deepfakes and information warfare. The blood flow of democracy is trusted information, but what if this happens? That video was a deepfake, just like a video of Belgian Prime Minister saying that coronavirus was caused by climate change, or a video of Ali Bongo, the president of Gabon, and the video caused a military coup. And now imagine majority of information online being produced automatically by not humans, but by AI. And what does it mean for democracy and society if we can no longer understand what is real or not, and what can be trusted? 800 people have died because of COVID-19 misinformation. $78 billion lost every year. Countries are increasingly launching disinformation campaigns, and $250 million are estimated to be lost because of deepfakes already in 2020. We counter these threats by a scalable AI-based detection platform. Our clients include the leading EU organizations and governments. And we have a team of NATO, US SOCOM, IBM, Apple, UK, and Navy in our team. Clients don't want the black box prediction, which plagues a lot of AI systems today. And instead of that, we offer a whole product to them. And that's what has made us the choice of the customer. We are extremely glad also to have some of the world's most success story investors together with us. As well, our advisors, Estonia's previous president, Toomas Hendrik Ilves, and Kristen Davies, who was New York Times head of technology. Our long-term vision is to provide a trust layer for the whole internet. And if you think about in Estonia, a lot of our citizens already have a solution for that, and that's called ID card. If another person sends a document to me, then I know I can trust that information because the government has put its stamp on it. So we need that kind of trust for the whole internet. And for that, we are looking for partners, including government and defense agencies, international media, and civil society and NGOs. We're also hiring. And with that, I'd like to thank you.
Thank you very much. There's been a cool and very straightforward presentation. I'm looking out to Steven, Sasha, Mike. Also, Jaan, if you want to ask some questions, or is part of it. If you have any questions to ask.
May I ask a question now, Johannes? This is Mike Short here.
Hi, Mike.
Very impressive presentation. Thank you very much. I see the need here, but I think I felt within the limited time you didn't express the how or even the business model. Could you say a little bit more about how you will achieve this and what is the business model?
Absolutely. So what we do, given a video or even audio, is we analyze given digital media by using different forensic methods and also AI itself. So, for example, we have the largest database of deepfakes, which we have gathered from the wild or sort of the different social media platforms. And that's how we basically trained our methods, neural networks, machine learning models, to detect if any given digital media is manipulated. Regards our business model, you can think of it as basically annual subscription that we provide to the governments, defense agencies, and other stakeholders. And also from the sort of the market side, today this market is very young, 2.5 years only old. And I like to bring an analogy that it's somewhere in the beginning phases of basically like a malware market. Meaning, firstly, it was needed by governments and defense agencies. So antivirus was needed specifically. Then it was Fortune 500. And when people like, good people like Jaan and other invented Gaza, and when people started downloading, end consumers started downloading all kind of programs, then also end consumers, how we aim
Jonas, I think your voice was breaking a bit. Can you repeat the last sentence again?
the last sentence.
Yeah, I mean, your answer.
So the last part was specifically about the market is still young, and it is an analogy basically to the beginning of the malware market, an antivirus market. Meaning, first of all, who needed an antivirus was governments and defense agencies. Then it was 100 all kind of different programs and whatnot from the internet. And this is the same way in the deepfake market. So today, governments, media outlets, and businesses, they know
quick question, Ahmed.
Yes, please, Sasha, go ahead.
Obviously, the need is indisputable here. And my question is, it seems that the technology has a application in the commercial sector, whether it is a privately held or public company. Do you have a business model that clearly describes the value proposition to those entities?
So do you, by that, you mean Fortune 100?
Sure, Fortune 500, yeah, or Fortune 1000.
No,
Maybe there are some privately held companies as well in different sectors that could benefit from the technology as well. So I don't know if you've done your research.
so we don't have an exact, for example, let's say for Fortune 500, we don't have an exact ROI number to them because we still see that the market is still just a bit too young for Fortune 100 at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Yanis. I'm not sure if there's other questions from Steven Baraki, Marek, Sasha, or Jan.
Just a small supplement, if I may, Ahmed. Johannes, are there any language dependencies when looking at this area of scalable AI-based detection? And are there some speed limits or data storage limits?
That's a good question. Language-wise, it really doesn't matter. And from a scale-wise, that is a massive challenge. It's a basic question of how do we actually scale the social media scale. We do have a few methods that already can scale the social media scale, but even those sort of take a lot of compute, a lot of resources. So in a longer term, in order to reach the basically mass scale, social media scale, there have to be a lot of good engineering done with it.
Okay. I hope this answered the question. And if you have a question, I think we should move on. So thanks a lot, Yanis. I think you made it very clear. Not much questions, so that's very good. And please stay with us if you can, so that you can see the other startups as well.
Likewise, and thank you as well.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure.
Pleasure is ours. So I think now we're moving forward with Visory AI. So if I can see Karen is here, yeah. And
hi, Aidan.
Hi, Karen. Karen, please, if you just set yourself up and put the slides. And as you know, it's going to be 4 minutes pitch, and then you follow by Q&A. The timer would start when you start speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Please go ahead.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you, everybody, for listening to me today. So I'm Karen. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Visory. And what we essentially do is take your existing camera infrastructure and turn the cameras into sensors using AI sight or computer vision and machine learning. LDV Capital has predicted that there will be in excess of 44 billion cameras by the end of 2022. And we can see that that number is probably an underestimation with the recent pandemic, and the proliferation of cameras has actually been accelerated thanks to that. And nobody will be ever able to look at all of these data streams that are coming in unless they use cognitive AI. And that's what Visory is doing, because yes, sadly, most of these camera streams are still aggregating a vast amount of dumb data, and that's not utilized to its full potential. So we are essentially built for anybody and everybody who needs to understand what's happening in their physical space, and who are camera operators or own or have access to a camera park. So these are essentially business parks, parking operators, retail centers, local government authorities, cities, and so forth. And we offer our AI tool as a SaaS service. So we want to remove all the barriers from this type of solution on scaling. So everything is self-onboardable, self-set up, and a very simple business model for a monthly fixed fee as well. We are working with three types of clients. So a campus or a business park, a city or a local entity, and then looking at the B2C model as well, which will be put into test later in 2021. So what have we been engaged in? So to date, Visory is only 11 months old. So we're a relatively young startup, I guess, like Sentinel is as well. And we started in November 2019. And since then, we have piloted in Dubai and worked with the local road and transport authority there, delivering a real-time traffic analytics. And once global pandemic came and we relocated back to Estonia in March, we started looking and working with local B2B customers. And we've been piloting ever since. So we essentially have 4 pilots on the go at the moment. One of them is international. And the first pilots are now converting into paying customers as well. How do we help, or what are the kind of softer goals perhaps that then translate back to harder data, and how do we help achieve United Nations Sustainable Development Goals? I guess it's quite simple from where I'm standing, because all the data is made visible through computer vision and through the camera feeds that we're looking at. So the image you can see here on the screen is from our very first client, which is a business park in Estonia, and that has utilized our tech to automate their parking visibility. They are also using the data we provide to build a better environment and to use the data for future real estate developments. We're also a responsible consumer, and they're trying to get the resource consumption of real video down. The team is myself, my co-founder Davi has built multiple AI teams internationally before, and our dream is to become the preferred video analytics platform in the world, deliver better bottom line, revenue increases, and help create a better urban environment for everybody. Thank you. I think my time is now up.
Thank you very much. That was perfectly on time by the second. So let me ask our judges if any of them have some questions for you. Baraki is here, so maybe you can start with Stephen Baraki, followed by Anthony.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what's your sort of competitive landscape. I mean, I've been looking at similar technology for quite a few years. So how do you see the major competitive forces out there, and how are you going to differentiate from them? Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Yeah, we get asked that a lot. So we have classified our competitors into quite a few groups. Some work only within traffic analytics, but the key kind of, I guess the common theme running through them is that most of them are hardware companies. So still a lot of these video analytics providers sell you their own sensor or some sort of an IoT device or a camera. And that's something that we specifically do not do. So we use whatever existing camera stream the client has. They do not have to do any massive capital expenditure. We just need a URL link, and they can even self-onboard. So that's the key differentiator. Secondly, we are very much privacy, security, safety first. We went through a full legal GDPR audit in August. So we're putting our money where our mouth is to make sure we're very much aligned with the privacy stuff. So that's the key, I guess, the key differentiators. And we don't just do counts and classification. That's quite simple. We are doing intent and behavior prediction to understand what is going to happen in the future and then deliver safety stats, better planning decisions to be enabled through that and so forth.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Jaan, please.
I guess I already have answered part of my question. My question was about kind of tension and uneasiness about surveillance that there is kind of spreading quickly, at least in the Western world, and also in China. From what I know, you mentioned GDPR, but perhaps you can kind of give an example of a problem that you already have had to face when it comes to kind of making sure that you stay on the correct side of privacy.
Mm-hmm. So one of our very first clients that we worked with before Dubai was actually Tallinn City Council. And we couldn't even look at car number plates, essentially, because it's just not, the legal framework doesn't allow for it. So we downsample all the video that comes in. We don't look at people's faces, we don't look at camera number plates, and then we start doing the detections after that. So we haven't even made it possible for us to see those faces. And especially the public sector and both of the sets of clients are very rigorous in following up. So before every pilot, we have a pretty rigorous check with the B2B clients' legal departments to make sure that what we say is actually how we do it.
All right, thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? I think we're good. Well,
Ahmed, may I come in briefly?
Yes, please, Mike. Go ahead.
Kengro, I enjoyed the presentation, and I should declare I have some history in traffic systems. And it's not an industry that changes very quickly, as you may already have observed. But is your business model based on SaaS enough? It seems to me you've got a lot of knowledge there. And is there not another revenue stream associated with design or advisory or consultancy? Are you underplaying your strengths?
Yes, thank you, Mark, for the question. So we have seen, especially recently in the retail space where we're piloting, that some of the data that these particular clients have gathered before is now taking on a whole new meaning. So give dwell time, for example. If you just use the Wi-Fi network, it doesn't really give you that much. But if you can see who those people are who are spending a lot of time there, you can then make a very different kind of different set of decisions based on that. So we have decided that up to 20% of the revenue can come from consulting, and it's one of those revenue streams that we could unlock absolutely, and we're looking into that as well. So building that particular capability into the company that would advise clients on how to use the analytics we are giving back to them.
Thanks, Karen, very much.
It opens up access to other data sets which you could look at as well.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the reasons we were very keen on this B2C test as well is to get more data for trainings. Like you said in the very beginning, data sets are the key.
Great. Thanks again, Karen. Good presentation.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
So we move forward with our third startup, Pactum. So please get yourself ready, Martin. But actually, I would also like to remind our mentors and judges for today to actually submit their scores for the first two startups who pitched using the digital scorecard that has been shared with them. So please make sure that you submit those scores. And Martin, thanks for being with us today. Glad to have you.
Thanks so much, Ahmed, for inviting. Glad to be here.
So can you please share your screen and make sure the slides works?
All right.
Yes, great. And please go ahead, and the timer is going to start when you start speaking.
Perfect. Hi, my name is Martin Rand. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Pactum, and we're making the world better by negotiating commercial deals with AI. Our customers are the largest enterprises in the world, including Walmart, who is the largest enterprise in the world by revenue. And most of our revenue is coming from Fortune 500 companies. Also, flagship enterprises like DocuSign have invested. And the idea of Pactum really stemmed from a personal story. I used to be the commercial lead for Climate Corporation for whole of Europe, and I had to negotiate with food and ag enterprises in Europe. So I could begin my week by negotiating with the Ukrainians on a Monday and with the French on a Friday. And I think I got to see every cognitive bias and every cultural difference there is to see in negotiations. And then I thought, how much value globally is lost due to inefficient negotiations? Because essentially all of the value, all of the money moves based on negotiations. So we looked into this problem with our team. Casper used to be founder of e-residency, which is one of the most well-known e-government programs in Europe. My background is in Skype. I also set up a farm management company. We scaled it and sold it to Monsanto. And Christian has a PhD in AI and machine learning, and he used to be the AI lead in Starship, which is an autonomous delivery robots company. And if we looked into the problem became even larger that we needed to solve. So large enterprises have tens of thousands of suppliers, and 80% of them are neglected because simply they are too small. So the initial terms are imposed on these vendors, and the deals are never renegotiated. So such cookie cutter deals could be more valuable for both sides, but humans are simply too expensive to renegotiate those small deals. So we set up Pactum to solve it. And we built an AI that can conduct commercial negotiations currently through a chat interface. As you can see here, it's like a human. It's negotiating based on contract terms through a chat. And how we create value is that both the vendor and the enterprise have things that they value more or things that they value less. And the system finds the trades between those and does the trade. So both sides end up winning, and the machine can do it 10,000 times in a week. So our business model is simple. We take either a fraction of the profit as a profit share, or we charge a fixed fee per negotiation. And in each case, we only charge for successful negotiations because we are so sure that we can create value that if we don't create value, then the customer doesn't have to pay anything. And here's the process of how we create this value. So firstly, we visit the customer, or visit them over video calls, and we track all the contract parameters. We conduct then these negotiations autonomously and generate the agreements, get them signed, and update the information into the corporate ERP. So the system essentially works on autopilot. And of course, we learn from each negotiation, and each negotiation makes every other negotiation better. So at the end result, we're creating value out of thin air. None of the sides have to invest anything. We take inefficiencies out of the contract. And we have a backend system where the customers can see the percentage of deal improvement and the monetary value, the millions of dollars of additional value that they've created. And one customer, when they saw this, they were cheering and clapping and saying that, wow, it's a game changer. And we really feel that we can we can raise the planetary GDP by taking one-size-fits-all approach out of business deals. So Pactum is generating new value without generating new waste. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think it's a very clear presentation, and I'm looking now, I can see Stephen Ibaraki wants to ask some questions. Please go ahead, Stephen.
Yeah, I'm curious to see what your revenue growth has been over the past 18 months.
Revenue growth?
Yes, that's correct. Over the past 18 months.
Yeah, so now we're making tens of thousands of dollars, and we're a one-year-old company, by the way, per month. And well, it used to be nothing, so that's a big jump from in 12 months.
Okay, then what's your forecast for the next 12 months?
So we raised money, and our runway will be 2 years currently, and we're looking to reach break even in 24 months. But let's do another call for more detailed numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Sasha, please go ahead.
Quick question, what does the competitive landscape look like for your company? I really love the application, just not aware what else is on the market.
Yeah, so no other company in the world is negotiating commercial deals with a machine. There are companies, though, that are focused on these long tail negotiations where we are focused in as well. But how they are solving it is with bidding. So they take all of the vendors and take them into a bidding platform and then readjust those deals. But we think that negotiations is way more efficient than bidding because it focuses on all of the aspects of the deal, not only price.
I would be curious to learn a little bit more about technology because in the United States, one of those organizations is in the healthcare space. It's called Premier Alliance. It's a publicly traded organization. And so they process billions and billions of dollars worth of different trades. And it's a combination of both. There is bidding and then there is negotiation involved as well. So you're welcome to reach out and kind of share your approach a little bit more in detail to see if it's applicable and will deliver value.
Thanks so much for this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm looking to for other questions if possible, and just really wanted to know. We're also going to make sure that if there's any of the that are interested in knowing more about the connection, so that some details can be taken kind of off this call, and happy to be a reason for scaling.
Ahmed, quick question, if I may.
Yes, please, Mike.
Martin, are you able to identify supply chain bottlenecks and, in effect, find a new revenue source from the same data?
So we are not a supply chain company. We are not a procurement company. We are inherently a negotiation company. So we know how to get a good deal within existing data. But those bottlenecks are quite often identified. And if they can be solved with negotiations, then we can help them. But we don't want to make our focus too broad.
I'm really looking for adjacent benefits of the work you do. In other words, are there other revenue streams than your current business-to-business clientele?
Yeah, I mean, there is probably the public sector as well. However, most of the value in the world is generated by commercial negotiations. So that's a big market in itself.
I applaud the focus, but I think looking at the data may develop other markets.
And I would really be interested in your thoughts, and I'll ping you later on, and maybe we can follow this up.
Maybe on this particular point, I can see one of the questions in the chat saying, can this product be used by small businesses like grocery stores? So maybe a lot of people are asking kind of the same thing. So maybe you need to give it another thought, Martin.
So in the future, yes, when our system evolves. Currently, no, because currently the beginning of the project is basically a professional services project. So we go in, we understand every detail of the contract, every tactic, every strategy, the goals, and all the tradable items, all the positive and negative levers. And this we do in the beginning currently with people, and that process needs to pay off. So there needs to be some scale currently, and that's why we're focusing on Fortune Global 2000 companies.
Okay, that's a good answer. I think maybe you would like to look at the chat or Q&A for some people pinging you on this business model. So thanks again, Martin, and we'll move forward with our next start. Linguist is can see there. Yes, Mike is here.
Hello, everybody.
Good.
I will share my screen right away.
get set and
share screen.
ready to go. Also, it's good to remind the judges and mentors again to submit their scores, please, for the last two startups. And Mate, where you start speaking, the timer is going to start. Best of luck.
Yes. So can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
So Linguist is building technology to make human learning 10 times more efficient. We're living in a rapidly changing world, and education is not evolving quickly enough. Generations entering the workforce today must learn much quicker and much more than ever. What if we could learn as fast as we did when we were kids? Children learn 2.1 new words per day during the fastest learning stage called vocabulary spurt. It's believed that adults can never learn languages that fast anymore. It's wrong. We have built technology that enables them to learn even 10 times more efficiently using AI. Today, it works for languages. Currently, we are integrating engaging content as a bridge to education, and our long-term goal is to power any field of education with this technology. Here's how it works. First, we make the learning content truly adaptive and relevant for each individual based on their goals and previous knowledge. Everyone forgets things at a different pace. We accelerate learning by using individual memory models powered by AI algorithms. This enables people to learn 10 times more efficiently because everyone has their best individual learning trajectories. It works wonderfully for languages. Our retention on month 25 is 30%, while most edtech apps actually struggle to retain 30% of users on month 2. It also turns out that learning efficiency is the single most important factor for revenue. We recently broke 1 million in annual recurring revenue, and we have massively improved our unit economics. Our next step is to link learning to all sorts of educational content. The best educational resources are in English, but 95% of people cannot access it due to the language barrier. That's why currently there are 1.5 billion English learners. However, common consumer apps teach only the very basics. When people need to learn for professional reasons, their technology just doesn't enable it. We create professional courses in 3 seconds. People simply drop content into our platform and automatically get the professional course on any topic: words, audios, exercises, and more. We have a concept to make the biggest book resources available to these billions of non-native English speakers. People are actually asking it or hacking it already. And we can also recommend content based on what they know, give them some pages to read, and let them to buy directly. And we're actually working together with Amazon because it works very well together with the content that Amazon has. Language learning is a huge market, $60 billion market, that can actually support the book market to grow. However, here's the really exciting part. Our technology has been built in such a way that it works in any field of education. We can work with corporate education, lifelong learning, post-secondary, and far beyond. The total edtech market will grow to $10 trillion by 2030. Our AI-first approach, the technology and algorithms we have built, and experience we have from teaching millions of people new languages put us at the forefront of it. We have just the right team to do it. Our DNA comes from CERN, where I was part of the Higgs boson discovery team. Our lead scientist is a professor of linguistics, cognitive science, and artificial intelligence, a super rare combination. And our engineers were key people building Skype and thereby connected the world. We know how to build products that work at scale. Wouldn't it be amazing to learn a new language or even being a pilot in a couple of months? This is possible. We all have to learn new things in this rapidly changing world, and how quickly we learn makes the major difference in our lives, in our family lives, and the people around us. This is the reason why we are building this technology to make human learning 10 times more efficient. Thank you.
Great, Mike. And I think it's a very clear presentation, also on point with the time. Steven Baraki, please, the questions.
Yeah, there'd be, excuse me, tremendous interest in this, to be on a score of meetings related to this, what you're doing. Can you name maybe 4 or 5 validated customers, more than letter of intent? You indicated you got revenue, so.
We have a consumer product, so all of these users who are paying, they are kind of validated customers. We have 20,000 paying subscribed users.
And do you have agreements with any of the big corporates that are out there as well that are in this environment?
It a little bit broke up. Did you ask that? Do we have any bigger clients as well?
Yeah, who are in the education space or interested in this area?
There is actually a very interesting story that one of our consumer customers was a student and left his school and for a year, and then he found linguist, learned French, and when he came back, then the teacher was amazed that actually the teacher thought that he was living in France, and that's why I learned French so quickly. And when the teacher learned about linguist, then she started to use it in her classroom, and then soon all of the other teachers started to use. And actually last year there was a state level competition in America, and the first and second and third prize was won by linguist users. And the teacher is saying that now when the children are using linguist, then she's doing in the first year things that she never even did it in the third year. And there are actually many other schools who have reached out to us as well and have bought the product, although we're actually a consumer product and our main focus is in consumers.
Great, thank you. I'll try to dig into your financials offline. Thank you.
Okay.
Sasha, please.
I want to clarify, did you say that your current revenue is $1 million?
The annual recurring revenue is $1 million, but it's the monthly recurring revenue is growing like a consistently 10% in a month or 10-11% in a month.
Yeah, that's quite impressive since it sounds like you're business to consumer business. So a quick question. So I just moved to Switzerland and having to learn French, actually onboarded with your program, started to play. And it seemed to me, and again, I'm very early stages of learning about it. It seems to me very similar to Rosetta Stone. So Rosetta Stone was a pioneer. It's a quite successful organization. Just wanted to hear how, you know, there are a number of, there is Duolingo is also a platform I've personally used. So how do you compare with the other market players? And because again, also as far as the scale, they are established players.
It's similar in that way that it's online, it works on smartphone and then the desktop. What is different that our focus is to make learning super efficient, so that what you learn with 1 hour with linguist, you probably need to learn 10 hours with Rosetta Stone or Duolingo, maybe even more, because their focus is not making you learn more efficiently. Duolingo's goal is to keep you engaged as playing a game, and it's a totally different value proposition. So we are a product for results-driven people.
Thank you.
May I just ask why you're concentrating on business to consumer, and what are your primary promotion methods?
Very good question. The main reason why we focused on consumers is that we are building this underlying core technology to make human learning 10 times more efficient. And we have to be in direct contact with the end users, because if there is a company in between, then it changes the motivation. And companies, there are a lot of external motivation, and then we can't actually develop this core technology that enables to rely on internal motivation and really make the human learning more efficient using technology.
And what is your promotion approach if you're concentrating on consumers? Word of mouth, internet, or some other method?
Yeah, currently our main focus has been paid user acquisition. Because the paid user acquisition is very straightforward. We can measure every single step of it, and we can see that we're able to move systematically or improve the unit economics. So it's But the paid user acquisition brings also a lot of organic users, and actually most of our current users come through organic channels.
Have you thought about trying other sectors that have a need for languages? So, for example, advertising or the music industry?
We have actually the technology that we have built enables to create professional curriculum around any content, and that's why it's very interesting for us working together with Amazon, New York Times. We also see that there is a good potential to work together with Netflix and Spotify, because we can build these language curriculums around any real life educational or recreational content. And this is very unique value proposition that just based on the technology, other competitors just can't do. And this definitely gives a lot of additional opportunities to scale the product in the consumer market.
Thanks, Mate. That's really good, and you answered a lot of questions already. We're happy that actually we had you here, and today with this great presentation. I'm also happy to make the connections with any of our casual judges for later on. So thanks again, Mate. And
thank you.
Move forward with our last and definitely not least startup, e-agronom. So e-agronom, Robin here. Robin is not working. Please, we cannot hear you, Robin. The audio is not working. No, we cannot hear you. We can see you with a very beautiful background. It's not virtual background, it's real, but we cannot hear you.
Is it working now?
Now it's working, yeah.
All right, so I took my headphones away. Just wanted to say that I'm saying hello from the forest in Estonia. We have internet in every forest, so that's kind of cool of being Estonian.
I'm sure everyone here is envying you. And the maximum we can do is having a virtual background that looks similar, but not the real thing.
Yeah.
So, Robin, please go ahead with your slides. And I think we're a few minutes over time, but that's okay. So please share your screen. And
can you see the screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Awesome. So basically how we see the world is that for hundreds of thousands of years, there has been synergy between nature and mankind, but we are lost a bit. And unfortunately, same is true for farmers. Now, e-agronom goal is to restore this synergy between mankind and nature. And we think that the best way of doing it is by helping farmers to build profitable and stable businesses. Now, I myself, I'm coming from the farming family, and but I went to study computer science in the university, and over there I met with Stenver, the other founder of e-agronom, and together with Stenver, we saw that there are many challenges in farming, and we thought that, well, what should we achieve to actually make the difference? And at one point we set 2 goals for e-agronom. Number 1, that we have to build digital farm manager, and it has to be so good that we can actually give a profit guarantee to farmers. And number 2, farmers who take CO2 from air and turn it into the soil should get extra money for doing it. So these were the goals that we set. We are now 4 years in, and we believe that both goals are very achievable. We are already the main source of knowledge for many farmers all around the world, and we are speaking with big corporations about offsetting their carbon footprint with local farmers. Quickly about the team, I already told about myself. Stenver, the other founder of e-agronom, he has already experience of scaling one startup from 7 employees to more than 50 employees. Christian Luha, our chief commercial officer, has 20 years of experience in Nike, including senior VP roles. Margus Niitso, the youngest PhD in the history of Estonia, and then made his own AI startup and sold this, and then joined e-agronom. Simon, he's from UK, has 40 years of experience in farming, and has farmed from basically all around the world, from Africa to Russia. And we have 40 people in total in e-agronom. Now, quickly about the product as well. In general, e-agronom is doing everything that a real farm manager is doing as well. And if you think about real farm manager, then he or she is driving around, speaking with people, so collecting data. e-agronom is doing the same thing, but a bit differently. So we have connection with sensors, satellite, and some information is coming from the easy-to-use interface, where tractor operators add the information. And then we analyze the information and give suggestions to farmers, what crop to grow, how much fertilizer to put, and so on. And then we help with people management as well. To give you a quick overview about scale, we have 1,400 farmers. They manage in total 1 million hectares in 7 countries, 6 in Europe Union, 1 Australia. So that was a quick overview of e-agronom. So our goal is to restore the synergy between nature and mankind, and we think that the best way of doing it is by helping farmers to build sustainable, profitable, and stable businesses. Thank you. Happy to answer all the questions.
Thanks very much, and thanks again for the time, being within the time. Tiffany Baraki, please go ahead.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just looking at a major player in this area already, so very familiar with it. Are you using aggregators to get your farmers, and are you using other players in the supply chain who work with farmers as an entry point to get to farming clusters?
Yeah, well, we have really personal sales, but we use different partners to bring in leads. So we do cooperation with tractor resellers, with chemical resellers, and so on. And the main goal for them is to bring us more leads. And actually, very often we don't do cooperations with those big organizations, but really with those sales guys. So it works like a referral program. If they get a meeting with our sales guy and the deal gets closed, then the seller of tractor or seller of fertilizer gets a small bonus for doing it.
And then more on the business model. What's your revenue to date, and what's your projections in the next 12 months?
Yeah, so as I said, we have 1,400 customers. They manage in total 1 million hectares. We have almost, farmers pay us yearly license fee, and it starts from a few €100 to basically, I think the biggest customer pays 27,000 euros a year. Those who pay less, for them, we have positioned ourselves as ERP tool, just to build a relationship with them and start collecting data. And then later we started giving advice to farmers, and these are the high-end customers. And currently we are doing almost $1 million ARR, so annual recurring revenue.
Great, thank you.
There's other questions from the judges, but I can see some questions being posted in the Q&A. So there's one saying, what about crop insurance? And
yeah, that's one of the basically we're moving toward this direction. We think that like at one point we set the goal that we can give profit guarantees to farmers, and in some sense this is like insurance for farmers. But the biggest challenge actually in this way is that for us to make sure that farmers actually follow our advice. Because if we would know that they follow our advice very well, then already we could say that we could give them profit guarantees. If you take top farmers in the world, then they have really stable businesses. For many farmers, it's really volatile. So some years they have big profits, some years they are making loss. But top farmers, how it differentiate is not in a good years, but in a bad years. So in the bad years, they're also making profits. And because of this, we know that we can give profit guarantees, but it's hard for us right now to know for sure whether farmers actually followed our advice.
Okay, and I think there's other questions also in the Q&A about the climate-wise, how do you manage that? And there's also some people asking if they can get in touch with you. So if you can maybe write your email or something on the chat for everyone, so that if you want them to contact you, of course.
Yeah. Well, first of all, happy to answer all the questions later. Also, if you write me, robin@theagronom.com. But about the climate change, then, well, that's a big thing, and I think farmers are really feeling this climate change and mainly because there are more extreme weather conditions, and that's, well, as I said as well, one of our goals is that farmers will get extra money for taking CO2 from air and turning it into the soil. And what it would mean is that humus balance, or the organic carbon in the soil, is increasing. And organic carbon and humus in the soil is like a water bank. So it's like a swamp. It takes water in, and if it is really too dry, it has like reserves for plants. And at the same time, if it's too wet, then it is ready to take water inside. So that's one of our key goals. If you think about sustainability, I think we have 5 things over there. Well, and they're all important. So firstly, the species richness. Secondly, pollution. So everything that will be added to the soil should be consumed by the plant. Thirdly, the soil level. So the soil level, soil quality should be growing. Fourth, farmers should be having profitable businesses, because this is also, if it's not profitable, it's not sustainable. And fifth, putting all those 4 together, it has to be resilient with extreme weather. So if there is extreme weather conditions, farmers still have to have good financial results.
Very good explanation, answer for the question. Thank you very much, Robin. And I mean, you can see the chat and Q&A. If there's anything, you can respond right now. So thanks again. I think already 7 minutes over time, but I cannot close it without going back to the judges and mentors and maybe ask them all to give like a very quick final comments. I'll start with Jaan. If Jaan is Mike already had video on, so you can start with Mike if you have like final remarks or comments about today or about the startups.
I would like to say that all the presenters were great in terms of mentioning AI and also issues to do with sustainable development goals. Some of them weren't making as much use of technology as I thought they could. Some of them didn't really show maybe an exit path. In other words, if something going to scale up at some point, they may need to find an exit, and being clear on that. But I think also knowing when they should use partners, when they should perhaps not just recruit people for their own business, but using partners didn't come across very strongly to me. However, all my marks are in, and I look forward to hearing the final score. Well done, everybody.
Thank you very much, Mike. Jaan Tallinn, final remarks, comments from your side?
Yeah, thank you. I guess it would be kind of unfair for me to kind of comment individually, because I am an investor in 3 out of 5. But I think that the companies that I'm not an investor in, I think that it did pretty well as well. So I was very, very interested. It was much better than expected. Let's put it that way.
We're happy we did this for them.
Thank you.
Okay, great. And Sasha, maybe you would like to have your final comments, remarks about the session, about the startups in general.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and thank you guys for presenting. I thought the presentations were well done. I think probably due to constraints of time, there's probably a longer conversation that we can have with each one of the presenters about the business model and exit strategy. I completely agree with Mike there. Just a kind of a final 2 cents. If any of you guys, seek to have an application in the healthcare space, so I've been in the healthcare space for about a decade now, please feel free to reach out, and any of the people who join as well. Thanks for the inclusion.
Thanks, Sasha. And Stephen Ibaraki, final remarks, comments about the whole session or the startups in general.
Well, first of all, congratulations to the ITU as host of this event, and Ahmed. Again, you're the ones who propagated AI for good, and of course the Innovation Factory. So just a marvelous job. Now, on the presentations I saw, I thought they were very well done. And they got the main points. I thought it was a good illustration of reasonable innovation that's out there, and some of them, in my opinion, I would invest in as well. So, I had a great time, by the way. Thank you.
That's a big statement, Stephen Ibaraki. Would love to have some connections between you and these startups. And on this note, I would like really to thank very, very much the Government of Estonia for co-organizing this session with us. And a great effort. It was a great teamwork on both sides, on the Government of Estonia side and the ITU. It was really, really great to have this session and this overview with the opening remark by Stan Tamkivi. And having, of course, Jaan Tallinn, having Mike, Sasha, and Stephen Ibaraki as well as judges, the great 5 startups. And I have to say that the 5 startups will be included in our AI for Good Innovation Factory, like following the same process in terms of the scores and evaluation and selection. So if they have been selected as one of the top startups in this year, they would be featured in the AI for Good Innovation Factory Grand Finale on the 19th of November this year. As presented as outcomes of the AI for Good Innovation Factory. So yeah, that's been great. I already knew from my colleagues right now that we have actually the scores. I cannot announce the scores, and I cannot say if they are one of our top startups throughout the year, because as I said, we're having these pitching sessions ongoing throughout the year. But maybe I can say the top startup of today. So I can say the one that got the highest score of today. I will not say the score. I will not say what score. I will not say the other scores, but just the top startup who scored the highest score for today. And it's actually Linguist. So Linguist got the highest score for today's pitching. There's other details that we'll be looking onto in the scores itself. And of course, if Linguist or other of the startups have been selected as our top for the AI for Good Innovation Factory, they will be contacted for being with us on the AI for Good Innovation Factory Grand Finale on the 19th of November. I can see him right here as he's opening his video with a smile.
Yeah, I wanted to say thank you to everybody. I'm very honored.
Thank you for being with us. Thanks again for our mentors, judges, and very, very special thanks for our sponsors, partners, and co-convener Switzerland. I hope all of you are going to have a great day, afternoon, or evening. Thank you very much.
Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector. Rewind selector.